Hello once again, this is Ray from Simo Ray English Language Productions in Vung Tau in Vietnam. Today we're going to be talking once again about a controversial issue. Today our issue is child soldiers. Also, don't forget to take down the details of our contacts if you would like to know more. Not only do we produce English language products for computer use, we also have various other products and learning products. So please don't be afraid to contact us if you think we could be of some assistance to you. Please make an inquiry. Today we're going to be talking about the subject of child soldiers, but just to remind you, presentation in this series are completely unrehearsed. This is in order to give our students an authentic experience of off-the-cuff discussion, just as if you were a fly on the wall and listening in on two foreigners discussing a controversial issue. So these are spontaneous matters, spontaneously spoken answers, just as we would expect from our students. So listen really carefully, as this is English as it is really spoken. This is not the sanitized English that you will get in a textbook. We expect you, our students, to be able to talk in a spontaneous manner. Today it's going to be about child soldiers. They fight like soldiers, but they die like children. With me today is also my colleague Simo, who is the Simo part of the Simo Ray English Language Productions. Hi Simo, how you doing?
I am fine, thank you. Ray, yourself?
Yeah, I'm fine. Are you ready to talk about child soldiers?
This is a topic that's very close to my heart, Ray.
Okay. Let's have a look about this. Tell me, what comes to your mind, or what do you think about when you hear the words child soldier?
Disgust. I'm disgusted in how adults could possibly allow their children to fight in wars and carry weapons and kill other people.
Right. I think that's probably a lot of people's type of reaction. They would be disgusted about this idea. Where do you think child soldiers are fighting in the world at the moment?
Well, we don't hear about it every case, but in a lot of places in Africa, they use a lot of children in there to fight their wars, which also means killing some of their relatives, but mostly South Africa you hear about the most. But I've got no doubt in my mind that it does happen in other areas of the world.
I think this picture that we see here is quite shocking from a European point of view. We can have a look at this little girl. She's got blonde hair. She's got blue eyes. She's definitely not an African. She's definitely not, from one of the Arab countries. She's a Chechenian, I would think. So it's quite shocking to think that somebody from a European country would be a child soldier. What do you think?
Well, would this be through the Bosnia War?
It's very possible. She looks very Slavic, but look at her. She looks like an innocent little angel, but she's a really dangerous little angel.
Well, the expression on her face, Ray, tells me that she is so sad.
She's not very happy, is she?
No, she looks like she's been affected very, very badly by what she's been made to do by her elders.
Yes, I think so too. What do you think of people who actually force children to take up arms and fight? We've seen it a bit in the past, haven't we?
Well, Ray, I'm anti-war altogether. I believe in peace around the world. I think, like I said before, it's disgusting how adults make the children fight their battles for them. Children are supposed to be children. They're supposed to experience the joy, the ups and downs of being a child. They're really not supposed to be going out and killing other people, including their relatives, at such a young age.
Yes, we see this picture here, for example, of this young boy. He's obviously dressed in a Nazi uniform. This would probably be towards the end of the Second World War, but he certainly, whilst he might be doing his patriotic duty, I think the significance of it all is well beyond somebody of his age, and he's certainly not happy, is he?
He's got a look of total despair on his face. Total despair.
Yes, let's have a look at some of these pictures of these people. This guy is we know him. That's our mate Adolf Hitler. Here we got Joseph Stalin. Here we've got Idi Amin. Down here we've got Napoleon Bonaparte, Saddam Hussein, and Queen Victoria of England. Now, my next question, Simo, is what do you think? Is it only the evil rulers who have child soldiers fighting for their country?
Well, in certain books, you'll probably find children who have fought in the past. I have no doubt that that the German children were forced to fight in the war, but I totally disagree with children being used for anything except being natural born children.
I mean, I suppose from some perspectives, nearly all the people in these pictures are evil, possibly because they lost a lot of their campaigns. For example, Adolf lost his war. Idi Amin was deposed. Saddam Hussein was deposed. I think, if you're evil or not depends on whether you won the conflict or not.
I don't think it matters whether you win or lose. The children lose out all over. It's the children who lose. They lose their innocence. They are going to be affected by what they've done for the rest of their life. It's going to cause so many mental and health issues further on in their life. And you've more or less destroyed a young human being by making them carry weapons and kill other people.
Yes, I have to agree. Okay, so what do you think the children feel about fighting in a war? What's their perception of the whole thing?
Well, children are still going through the process of learning, Ray. So children learn by look, listen, and learning. So they believe in what their parents and the adults tell them what to do. So in some areas, especially in places like Africa, like I mentioned before, children have been fighting in wars for decades now, and it becomes a part of the norm, so to speak, I think, Ray.
Yeah, look at this little girl, for example. Here, look, the Kalashnikov is nearly as tall as she is. And she's just riding her bicycle through the Cambodian countryside. I would say Cambodian by the looks of her and the countryside. She's probably one of Pol Pot's soldiers. Very sad time in their history. She's going off there and she's carrying that monstrous thing. She probably is quite aware that it kills people. I wonder what's going through her mind.
Well, like I said, she's probably so confused with regards to what she's been requested to do by the leaders of the country. As you can see, there's not the slightest hint of happiness or joy in her facial expressions. She again looks like the other German soldier who has just got a look of despair on her face, Ray.
Yes, I think that probably sums it up. She does look quite desperate. Do you think children make good soldiers?
Well, they probably do, Ray, because children will most often do what they're told to do. So they really don't have a choice. They might be scared if they don't do what they're told. They're going to be punished by their parents. So they're really in a catch-22 situation, I believe, Ray.
What do you think motivates child soldiers? Do you think they're forced to do it by their superiors, or do you think they might somehow, some of them might have a sense of wanting to get revenge because maybe their parents or their brother or sister was killed by the other warring party?
Well, that's a good point, Ray, but sometimes I believe a lot of the children really don't know what is happening. If a child is born and raised in a hostile environment, they're going to think that this is a normal thing. They don't know anything else bar war and killing people.
Yes, I have to agree with that. And how do you think a child changes once he's given a gun and he's told to kill people, or she is told, use this is how you use it, point it at the enemy and shoot 'em dead?
Well, my last answer covers a bit of this question as well. The children are more or less forced to do what they're told to do, so they're just following orders, I believe, and they probably don't realise exactly what death is.
Yeah, quite so, quite so. Do you think children in general have the same respect for life that most adults do?
Uh, Children don't really fully understand what life is, I don't think, Ray. It's not until they get into their mid-teens when they start to appreciate life and realise that life is and should be ongoing. It must be a horrible experience for these children to have to shoot other people and kill other people.
The reason I ask that is because I know there's a lot of little boys in particular who think nothing about pulling the wings off flies and mangulating grasshoppers and frogs and things like that. Is obviously that they probably don't have much of a respect for life. Anyway, what about, do you think that computer games with shooting and killing in them, which is so popular these days, have an effect on the way children see war?
Well, in a lot of the poorer countries, the access to the computer and internet isn't freely available, so they probably don't know a lot about the computer games. But in developed countries, and including Vietnam, I'm distressed when I walk into an internet cafe and see the children playing violent games. I think it does have psychological damage, and it may in their later life make them do violence and hurt other people.
Yeah, I get particularly disturbed because I see that they play the computer games and they shoot the baddie, the baddie falls down and he's dead and they've won the game and they're the hero. Tomorrow when they go back to play the game, the baddie's back again. He's not dead forever. I think maybe children have this perception that dead is only overnight.
Yes, I'd go along with that as well, Ray. You also look at cartoons where, for example, the Roadrunner.
Yes,
You see the coyote chasing after the Roadrunner. The Roadrunner stops just before the edge of a cliff, and the poor old coyote keeps going, and then you see him falling hundreds of meters into a pile of dust down the bottom, and then you see him up again chasing the Roadrunner. So it's kind of similar to the violent games.
Yes, I think so. Also, I wonder about children watching movies like American movies. We always see lots of gung-ho characters with guns, and they all beat each other up, and they punch each other in the face with such punches that if they landed on you or me, we'd probably be out cold. But Americans must be really tough. They just go blip and they get back up again, right?
Well, when I was young, I remember watching TV in Australia, which was prominently American and English TV. I noticed, especially in the cowboys and Indians and in the gangster movies that I watched when I was a kid, my impressions of Americans was that they were very violent people.
And very tough because you can punch them up and nothing happens to them.
Yeah, well, I found that fascinating because when I played football and I'd cop a bit of a punch in the mouth, it would really hurt, and I really didn't want to get another one. But when you see in American movies when they're really getting stuck into each other, and then you see them, they get up unscathed. That means that it hasn't affected them at all. So you're right, it does give the impression that the Americans must be tough people.
Or maybe even that, just beat somebody up, it'll be okay tomorrow.
Yeah, well, that's another aspect of looking at it, Ray.
Yeah. Here we see a picture of a young boy from the USSR. I imagine, I've been told by Russians that this is definitely a young boy from the USSR. He's receiving some sort of a medal from some people probably in his own town or village. He doesn't, whilst he looks happier than some of the others, he doesn't look very much at ease, really, does he?
Well, have a look at how old he must be, Ray. Most children or most boys that age would be receiving trophies for playing football or a sport. Here's a guy, a young boy, getting rewarded for killing people.
Well, yes, very possibly. I mean, he's got a Kalashnikov in his hand, so I guess that's his aim. Do you think that young soldiers like this, they have emotional scars later in life, and will they ever heal?
I think it's internal, mate. I think it lasts forever. I don't think you can ever wipe out the memories that these poor children must have and carry with them.
I get the impression that this must also be quite a posed photograph. I mean, how would you like to be that guy with the cap right in front of the muzzle of the Kalashnikov?
Well, look at the expression on his face. He looks fairly proud of the young boy.
I wonder, is it his dad?
It could be. Probably the young boy's father's dead. He's probably been shot already, perhaps.
Obviously, Grandma is being a little bit encouraging there, right? They're probably telling this young man, you did a patriotic thing, you did a wonderful thing. But I guess, in the end, he's got to live with the idea that I probably just killed another human being.
Well, he won't even realise that until later on in his life, Ray.
Yeah, I guess in a wartime we demonise the enemy, don't we? Although I think the Nazis did a pretty good job of doing that themselves without having to get too much propaganda against them. Okay. Do you think these little soldiers, are they proud of what they do?
Probably yes, because of the peer pressure to do what they've been doing. But like I said, the adults are hyping these children up to think about killing the poisonous enemy. It's all to do with brainwashing. I don't really think the children understand exactly what's going on, Ray.
Yeah, okay. What do you think the global community should do to reduce the number of children who are fighting in conflicts all across the world at the moment? Have a look at these young guys. They're obviously in the Middle East. So what do you think? What should we be doing?
Well, I think the United Nations should include in their charter that the leaders of countries that make children fight in wars should be arrested and jailed for life or executed.
Whoa, that's pretty serious, isn't it? Do you think sending children into battle is teaching them something about patriotism?
I think that's a farce, Ray. I think they're just a cheap way of killing the enemy.
Yeah, okay. Could you imagine fighting in a war when you were 9 or 10?
I am just totally distressed by children that age having to kill other people in a war. It just shouldn't be allowed to happen, and the world sooner or later must do something about this.
Look at the expression on these young guys' faces. I mean, it's got the same expression as a lot of the others we've seen. They're just totally blank, totally vacant. I mean, they're doing this life-threatening thing when they should be learning how to do their maths or learning how to read or write. And look at the behaviour of them. These are young guys and they're smoking. Who knows what else they're doing? If you were a young child of about 8 or 9 or 10 and you were sent out with a rifle like this, would it change your view of the value of life?
Well, like I said before, Ray, in most countries where they use the children to fight the war, I don't think the children really know anything about life at this stage, not fully anyway. I don't think they're going to have a chance to have internal peace and happiness throughout their life because of what they do in their young years.
Ruins them, doesn't it? I was just going to ask you, do you think child soldiers are happy?
I don't believe so. I think they're more or less forced to do what they do. They're scared of getting harmed or in trouble if they don't do what they're told. As you can see, so far every image we've seen on the screen, you haven't seen a child with the slightest smile on their face or the slightest bit of joy or happiness.
Look at this little girl, for example. Here she is carrying this monstrous weapon, and she's trying desperately to be a little girl. She's wearing beads and she's wearing some earrings. However, the fact that she can be a little girl is being denied her, isn't it, really? I mean, she's showing through that she wants to be a little girl, but she's not. She's just a soldier.
Yeah, you're exactly right there, Ray. I kind of feel the same impression from the photo as well. She's trying to look like a woman with the necklace and the earrings, but you know she's been raped of her youth.
Oh, it's a good expression, isn't it? Yeah, yeah, I think so too. But don't you really think children are just living out the fantasy a lot of them have with playing violent computer games? This is the computer game, but in real life.
Well, this is probably a hard topic to talk about because when I was young, we watched the cowboys and Indian movies, and after the movie, we'd be outside with our toy guns, shooting each other and throwing a bow and arrow, use a bow and arrow against each other, and we think it's just a whole big game. But when the game turns into reality, like it does for these poor children, it's definitely not a game any longer, Ray.
Yes, okay. In what ways do you think child soldiers could be more dangerous than adult soldiers?
Well, maybe internal fear. They are probably quicker than most adults. They probably do what they're told, more obedient than say guys between 18 and 21 who have lived a bit of their life and know what life could be like. So with children, they're kind of naive to just about everything and the understanding of what they're doing, I think, Ray.
Yeah, I mean, geez, look at this young guy. His prime concern was getting himself a pair of butterfly wings. I mean, it's sort of... It says something about innocence. We probably look on these guys, these young people, as being innocent, but they're very dangerous. Right? What's the youngest at age at which people can join the army in your country?
Well, in our country, Australia, it's 18 years of age.
Look at these young Vietnamese girls. They're about 13. This is obviously during the American War, or as Americans call it, the Vietnamese War. They were conscripted. They had no choice. They were pressed into battle, and you know, I know, as you mentioned, in Australia the age for joining the army is supposed to be 18. My father joined at 16 during the war because he had his birth certificate altered so that he could go on the great adventure. He was sorry he did. Also, I noticed in Australia a lot of people don't think about this, but at our high schools we have cadets. You can join the cadets when you're 15, and I think 14. And if there was an invasion of the country, you are expected to do your duty.
Well, that's exactly right, Ray. With regards to some of my relatives, they also altered their birth certificates so they could go to war because of the propaganda that American and Australian governments were telling the citizens of the country, that it was a journey, it was an opportunity to travel, and they kind of put the impression in people's minds that they were doing something good for Australia, they were protecting Australia. And Australia being a part of the Commonwealth, being a part of England and Britain,
Royal Britannia.
Exactly, we have to obey what the Queen requested back in those times. But it's the propaganda that is the brainwashing tool that the governments of warring countries use to brainwash their citizens.
Yes. What do you think the average child soldier does on a normal day?
They probably live in fear, both of having to kill somebody else, and also being hurt or killed themselves. So it would just be like become a daily routine. So every day would be exactly the same, where it's just violence and aggressiveness. It's just a bad thing for children to have to be forced to experience in their life.
Mhm. Well, what sort of games do you think child soldiers might play?
Well, it depends on what age that they're actually entering the war, and it depends on the economics of the country. Poor countries don't have the same type of games that children play in developed countries. So I would say in places like Africa and the other poor nations, they would have their traditional games that are made from, for example, you got the game of knuckles that are made from sheep spine, and traditional games without the computers and without the board games. So it'd be all natural games that would have been passed down through the generations, I think, Ray.
Hmm. Do you think your country, Australia, has ever used child soldiers, or do you think countries in the British Commonwealth, for example, would stoop to using child soldiers?
Well, like I said just before, that the propaganda that the governments used was inviting for the citizens of the country, especially the youth, because it was classed as an adventure, and in Australia, I don't think we would have had too many child soldiers under the age of 15 or 16.
Yeah, okay. This picture is a little bit telling. It's this is an American. This child is an American, and he was in the Civil War. He's a drummer boy or something like that, you know. Just to give you an idea, here are a few of the countries that have used children in wars: France, Britain, unbelievably, Vietnam, USSR, Germany, the Congo, Afghanistan, Libya, USA. In fact, there are very few countries that have not used child soldiers at some time. It's quite disturbing. We tend to think that that European type nations would not do that. However, you know, let's think about the Battle of Trafalgar, for example. Plenty of children in that.
Yes, yes. I'm glad I don't see Australian on that list. But people and countries at war will go to any lengths to win the battle.
Yes, quite common. Here's a picture. This is very strange. Here's a picture of a young English boy. You see, he has a rifle. He's put in a trench, and he's told to shoot the Germans if they come over the trench. Right? Obviously, he's at home in England somewhere. So, is it okay to give children guns if they are the only and last chance to protect their country?
Oh, that's a hard one. It depends on what the anticipation of the invading forces have intended to do with survivors of the country they're at battle war with. Now, if the
Yes.
children are going to be assassinated or exterminated by the enforcing forces coming into their country and taking over their land, well, maybe the children can bear arms to protect their own lives. But I hope I never see or hear of that happening. I would rather see children playing sports and playing in parks than shooting each other and having to put their life on the line for their country at such a young age.
Yeah, okay. Well, here's another European situation where children were pressed into service. Adolf and his Hitlerjugend, they were all aware that they may have to lay down their life to protect their country, and of course, well, it just didn't work. Such a stubborn man, right up to the very last moment. You know, when the invading Soviets were above him on the street when he was in his bunker underneath. He was still pressing children into service. The United Nations says it's okay for 15-year-olds to fight. What do you think?
I think the United Nations is causing more harm than good when they say things like this, Ray. Getting back to Hitler, Hitler was the expert of all experts with regards to propaganda and brainwashing. He was a specialist at it. With regards to what we're looking at now, like I just said, my opinion is that the United Nations are really causing problems by saying that it's quite okay for a 15-year-old to fight. I think it's giving the wrong impression, and I don't think the United Nations are doing their job correctly when they're doing this sort of advertising.
But on the other side of the coin, they also say that using children under 15 is a war crime. Do you agree?
I totally agree with this, Ray, and I think the leaders, after a war has finished, the leaders and the army generals should be accountable for their actions through what they've done in the war by making children bear arms and risk their life and also take other human beings' lives.
Right, yes, okay. Well, that's the end of this discussion right now. Thank you very much, Simo, for your comments on this.
Thank you, Ray. This was a very disturbing topic for me to talk to you about. Like I said, I'm a peaceful man. I am anti-war, and places and organisations like the UN should do more to prevent children having to bear arms in war and make it a crime that the generals and the leaders of a country have to be accountable for once the war is finished. If they put a death penalty on this charge for the leaders and the generals, I'm sure we'll see less children under 15 fighting in wars in the future, Ray.
Yes, okay. All right, so thank you very much for taking notice of our presentation. I hope it's been of some help. And please don't forget, here are our contact details. You can contact us anytime you like. So please contact us. And don't forget that everything that we have spoken about here today has been totally unscripted and is completely spontaneous. Nothing out of a textbook. This is English as it really is spoken. Thank you very much.